Hello Tennis Weekly listeners, this episode is brought to you by Tennis Channel.
Tennis Channel is the only place in the UK where you can watch the 2022 Davis Cup finals and catch players like
Felix Auger-Aliassime,
Matteo Berrettini,
Marin Cilic,
Francis Tiafoe,
and Denis Shapovalov
as they battle it out for their nations to become the world champions of tennis.
You'll also be able to catch the Battle of the Brits in December featuring Andy Murray, where he will be taking on the likes of Jack Draper and Dan Evans.
Plus, with the Tennis Channel subscription, you get exclusive access to original shows featuring top players, award-winning documentaries, and coaching videos.
Sign up now to Tennis Channel at www.tennischannel.app or download the app and use the code UKDC at checkout for 50% off your annual subscription.
That's just £12.50 for an entire year's worth of access to Tennis Channel.
So once again, that's www.tennischannel.app or download the app and use the code UKDC at the checkout for 50% off. And the link is in the description.
Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel and Kim, sponsored by DownloadTennis.com. On today's Billie Jean King Cup Day 4 catch-up.
Switzerland sweep past Canada.
USA exits early.
And Team GB prepare for their date with destiny.
Chris, today is the 11th of November and we are here to catch up on day 4 of the Billie Jean King Cup finals here in Glasgow at Tennis Weekly HQ. We are breaking tradition. We are not recording the morning after. We are recording as the day goes. We're in between the day match and the evening match. So we've just coming out of Switzerland versus Canada. We've had the two singles and the doubles, and Switzerland came through 2-1. I think the big story here was in the singles, where we were sort of expecting them to split them, but actually Switzerland 2-0 up, job done.
I know, it was a bit disappointing really, because I think this one had top billing and a lot of people thought that Canada might be the team that would come through it, but Bianca started so strongly and then kind of just lost her groove quite a bit. So that was a surprising result, and I think we did potentially think that Bencic would take the second singles of the number one players, but we thought that last tie would be live, but unfortunately it wasn't. So not quite the tie we hoped for, but Switzerland have definitely shown they mean business.
Absolutely. I mean, Switzerland talked about in their press conference afterwards the consistency that they've shown, because they reached the semi-finals last year in Prague.
The final last year.
Exactly. And now they're back in the semi-finals this year. So they show that they've got a very strong team. And even though we thought, they were going to be very dependent on Teichmann and Bencic playing the singles, even bringing Golubic in that first match, she was fantastic. I think, bar the first set, she also, stopped that kind of mini fight back in the third set from Andreescu. But it just shows, actually, changed my perception a little bit, thinking, well, they're just a two-person team, really. Actually, they can call on other players in their squad to help get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We asked the question whether they were planning on to rotate their team or not. And what we found out was that they said they were, and they have. I didn't think that Golubic had shown much form coming into the week, but when Bianca was asked about her great track record against Jill Teichmann, it probably, that matchup set Swiss alarm bells ringing, because clearly they made the right decision by putting Golubic in, because that's a very different sort of player, a very different ball you're going to get back in. Having lost twice to Bianca already, Teichmann probably wasn't the best player to put into that, and having had that epic over 3 hours, having some rest and then kind of taking to the court for a bit of a doubles refresher later, leaves them all probably feeling pretty fresh heading into the semi-finals.
Yeah, it was an impressive victory from Golubic. I mean, I was a little bit disappointed with Andreescu, and I'm sure she would be as well, given how she started. I think she was, serving well. She was winning lots of points on her first serve, but as soon as that percentage dropped in that second set, it sort of went away from her a little bit, and she gave herself too much to do in that third set. I think Andreescu was 4-love down, and we noticed Andreescu had a medical timeout at, what was it, 1 game away from defeat with Golubich serving, and we said to each other, oh, Golubich is not going to like that. And when that mini fight back did start, and I was sort of wondering, is Golubich going to get more irritated and frustrated that medical timeout happened when it did before her serving, which arguably it looked a little bit like it put her off, during the match. But yeah, all credit to her being able to ultimately get it done in the end. And I think Andreescu will be frustrated that she gave herself too much to do in that third set, that ultimately 2 breaks wasn't enough to recover.
Yeah, and I think we spoke to Bianca in press after her first match win, and she talked about aspirations of 2023 getting back into the top 10. And it looks like she's kind of problem solving on court, but she's not executing her game as she used to. I think still there's moments of brilliance, but I think it's something where it is going to take some time. And Bianca in 2019 wouldn't be losing these matches. She'd find a way to win. And I think that kind of demonstrates where her level is at heading into next year, that there are moments of brilliance, but I do think the 2 tight matches she's played here haven't necessarily demonstrated the best of what we can see from her. Her second serve was pretty handy today, so that's something to take from it. But overall, I do think it is a disappointing result for her in this respect.
Agreed. And I think, she's obviously coachless at the moment. She's having interviews. So certainly I think having someone in her corner who's going to help her, I think give her direction, give her a game plan of what to do during the matches, I think would certainly help next season. But to me, what was also kind of surprising in terms of the results, because in the second time we had Bencic versus Fernandez. Now, Fernandez was coming off her last singles match with a double Vagel against Trevisan. And all of a sudden, within, what was it, 20, 25 minutes, she was on the receiving end of a bagel against Belinda Bencic.
Who would have thought? I don't think anyone would have, given the fact that she had 2 matches in 90 minutes just the day before, and then she was bageled herself. So I'm hoping that this doesn't kind of ring any alarm bells for Heather Watson if she plays tomorrow, having taken a bagel from Diaz, that keeping it going is obviously pretty difficult. But I think these two have a bit of history in terms of their matchups. I know that Fernandez has beaten her in this competition before, and also beat her in Roland Garros. So I think Bencic had a bit of a point to prove, having kind of won their last match, but I think she wanted to make the point in a team competition like this, because that was against a 17-year-old Fernandez at the time. So she really did start quickly, and a very, very valiant fight back from Fernandez, breaking back when Bencic was serving for it. And if you lose a set 6-love, I mean, picking yourself up and being able to play in that second set and deliver a competitive set is something to be happy with. But obviously Bencic was playing too well today, because that sort of result, the loss of 5 games in this matchup, is something that no one would really have predicted before.
No, I think the Canadian fans were in a state of shell shock, really, after that first set. When Fernandez won her first game in that second set, there was sort of big whooping, big hollering, trying to get her kind of motivated and G'd up. And I do think, Fernandez has shown that she's got a great test of character and strength. And, even if she is in a really difficult situation, she is able to kind of fight. She doesn't just give in that easily. And we certainly saw that a lot more in the second set. But I think, looking at the numbers, I think she'll be disappointed with, her first serve and how it was handled quite easily, I think, by Bencic. Bencic was getting a lot of returns in, and seemingly at times was just breaking the Fernandez serve at will. So, for me, I think there's obviously improvements that both individual players can make for Canada. And I think, looking at it, I think what's so, I guess, disappointing from a Canadian perspective is how easily they won the doubles. You felt like that was an advantage for them. Yes, maybe the Switzerland nominations would have been different if the tie was 1 apiece, but it sort of created this quite subdued atmosphere, didn't it, for the doubles match when we had Dabrowski and Fernandez come back on court, to face Jill Teichmann and Simona Walter, who was on Billie Jean King Cup debut, which, as I say, was a little bit of a subdued atmosphere, but probably from her point of view, quite a nice tie to come in, knowing that you've already kind of secured the victory. Yeah,
it never really got started, and I think the Canadian girls had a point to prove that if they had made it to that doubles, they could have done something pretty special. They did not want to lose 3-0 today, and you've got to really respect Fernandez for coming back out there, putting that defeat behind her and enjoying her time on the court in the doubles and ending on a bit of a positive note from a personal perspective for her. But Dabrowski, again, I mean, we saw her last year in Prague, and she is a cut above when it comes to doubles. Some of the shots she was hitting could gasp from the crowd. I think almost like a standing ovation from you, Joel, on one of them, because she was making all sorts of shots. And match point, she almost ran off the court to make the winner. So I think from her, it must be frustrating because she doesn't often get herself into these situations where she's able to kind of win that decisive rubber. Obviously, it was already 2-0 in favour of Canada the last time she took to the doubles court, and this time she'd already lost. So that you've got to feel for her, because she seems that she's really up for it. She's playing great tennis, and if it was a deciding doubles, I wouldn't bet against her.
Yeah, it was sort of disappointing from that perspective because, Dabrowski is such a great competitor. And again, I think a great test of character seeing Fernandez come back after a short period of time off the court. I wasn't even sure, to be honest, if they were going to even play the doubles, given Switzerland had qualified. Were you surprised at all they played the doubles, or I don't know if they needed to play it to decide who was going to end bottom of the group, but you would have thought maybe some of the players would have wanted to kind of, Jill Teichmann, for example, maybe would have wanted to save her legs for another semi-final.
I think even though she played, I think she did save her legs a little bit with the 6-2, 6-1 result. I was definitely surprised that they played it because I know they don't play it when it comes to semi-finals, and Italy were already bottom of the group. I guess it's about kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's so that there's a much more easy to understand table where everyone's played the same number of matches, the same number of rubbers. And I guess the spirit of the competition, it is about making sure that you do kind of play all of those rubbers in the group stages to see where you place. And if you set a precedent of not playing them at this stage, then I probably don't think that's a great message. But when it comes to semi-finals, I think obviously that doesn't make any sense to play them. So we'll see what they do tomorrow. But I was also thought we might maybe get the US Czech match started early, but no, we had to watch a dead doubles match.
Chris, you were checking the live scores for Jelena Ostapenko in her Billie Jean King Cup qualifying match. There's been qualifiers going on this week. It's not just the finals. Jelena Ostapenko out facing Austria, won on a final match time. So there's always something kind of going on. I mean, before we get into the USA versus Czech Republic tie, your prediction yesterday was Canada to go through. Are you nervous about your prediction with regards to the United States versus Czech Republic, given, for me, we've had a little bit of a surprise upset. I know Switzerland got to the semi-finals last year, but I thought Canada were looking strong, and with the fans behind them as well, I thought they were going to at least get to the knockouts.
Well, I mean, I saw the nominations, and I backed the Czech Republic, I think. I can't remember what I said, but I'm pretty sure that's what I said. And I thought that Coco Gauff, I thought she would be playing, but I did not think she'd be playing Siniakova. So that's the second highest ranked singles player who's also the world doubles number one. And you aren't able to change your singles nominations. So I feel like there's some maths going on here from the Czech team that Pliskova didn't play well yesterday, and so you need to play someone who's ranked higher than Vondrousova for her to be able to play the second singles, because she has a good record against Danielle. So although I'm surprised to see that, and the thought of, Siniakova having to double up doesn't make too much sense given the fact she's just flown in from Fort Worth, I'm slightly concerned, but I'm sure the Czechs have thought this through, and that first match of Vondrousova Collins is going to be the one that decides it, I think.
Conspiracy theories are well and truly out. So we're going to go away and go and watch that match and come back and digest our thoughts. So we will be back to talk about United States versus Czech Republic. We are just coming out of USA versus Czech Republic. And surprise, surprise, Chris, Czech Republic. Was it a surprise? Czech Republic winning 2-1. I think for me, what was the surprise was them winning both of the singles, because in the episode before, we were talking about this was going to be another one that was going to go to a doubles decider. But lo and behold, Siniakova, not in the doubles position, in the number one singles position, getting a great win over Coco Gauff.
I mean, none of us were talking about that being the selection for this match, so
masterstroke from the captain.
It really was. Get yourself someone who can be your number one singles and number one doubles player. It was a really, really impressive match from her. I think Vondrousova, we weren't quite so surprised by the fact that she took out Danielle. I think that was always going to be a tough matchup, given how well we've seen Vondrousova play at this tournament.
She loves playing for her country, doesn't she?
She does. She absolutely loves it. She barely loses a set, let alone a match. So that was not too much of a surprise. But the Siniakova match was super tight in that first set, and then it just ran away from Coco Gauff. So I guess we've had one where we still haven't had that sort of decisive doubles match, which kind of puts the GB match yesterday was the only match we've seen which was live right until the final point in terms of the result needing to be a clean sweep. So the third match was important. Whereas this one, again, we've had another dead doubles rubber that was played.
Yes, I know. It was all very strange. It was, again, all very kind of subdued in the building, and it really kind of rested on those two singles. And as you said, it was, for me, two very ugly performances from Coco Gauff and Danielle Collins. I feel like they're capable, of so much better. And I think we should start with Siniakova Gauff. 7-6, 6-1. Coco Gauff, by the end of it, to me, just looked like she wanted her off-season to start. I mean, Siniakova, I think, won 15 or so points in a row. It just went away from her very, very quickly. And it was a little bit surprising to me because, as you said, it's kind of Siniakova. She's played so much doubles recently, being in the finals in Fort Worth, coming over here. So you certainly would have thought, she would have been there or thereabouts for the doubles action. But to see her in singles action, coming in for Karolina Pliskova, an absolute kind of masterstroke by the captain that I think caught everyone by surprise, including Coco Gauff.
Yeah, I think also when you look at that matchup, Siniakova has lost her last 3 matches against Coco Gauff. So clearly there's some sort of unbelievable sort of premonition that came across the Billie Jean King Cup captain, in the sense that that's not necessarily a matchup you think would go too well. But I felt like they were probably, as I said earlier, going for the Vondrousova and then the doubles. So I think that Siniakova was a real bonus today. And maybe the fact that Coco was expected to win that actually kind of worked on not in US's favour by putting her in that spot, because if it had been a Pliskova, there would have been a lot less pressure on her, because everyone knows she's a Grand Slam finalist, 3-time Grand Slam finalist. And on an indoor court, she could be very dangerous. So the pressure was really on Coco, especially after losing that first singles. And unfortunately, she couldn't really handle it today.
No, and it does bring up the question on, did she put herself forward? Should she have kind of put herself forward? Because, you wonder whether, there might have been better, perhaps fresher selections given Coco Gauff's record in singles recently. I'm thinking back to Fort Worth in Texas. She was not playing particularly great, kept losing. Also in the doubles, kept losing. Yes, she looked good earlier in the week when she was playing in the doubles with Katie Putnali, but to me it was just, this was a match where, in a part to be expected, if you're not up for it, it just looked to her like the final match of the season. I'm ready to pack my bags, get onto the off season, and have a little bit of relaxation time. And by the end, it just felt like she wanted to get off court as quick as possible.
Yeah, I think she really needed the time off. It's been a really long season, and this just extends it even further. It takes more away from what would be her off season. So not the way anyone would want to end their season. So I do really feel for her, but I do think that hopefully this season now over, that she can start afresh next year.
And looking ahead to the semi-finals, now we have a rematch. Czech Republic versus Switzerland. Where do you see that battle being won and lost?
Well, I remember last year, it was the doubles that made the difference, I think. I think it was Vondrousova got an easy singles win against Golubic, and then it was a case that Bencic toughed out a 3-setter, I think, against Krejcikova.
That is very good knowledge.
No need to assume. Fact-checking, I will fact-check myself there. But no, it was an interesting one because they both got some of their key players who did well for them last year. So Bencic was a standout, so was Teichmann, and so was Vondrousova. So I can't see that second singles going to anyone other than Vondrousova if they play in that sort of formation that they have done so far. I think Bencic is going to get the first singles. I've said this multiple times. It's going to go to the doubles. And then I'd have to say I would go for Teichmann and Bencic because they don't have a doubles pair that play together. And I think Bencic and Teichmann have so much chemistry and they really want it this year. They've talked about it. So I'm going to say Switzerland getting the win again. What about you?
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right with Vondrousova. I think she plays fantastic. It's so frustrating. I feel see enough of that on the tour. I feel like she's very injury prone and it stops her playing a lot of tennis. And I think Siniakova is almost a secret weapon in the singles, I think, because she's inside the top 50 at the moment. I feel like she would be higher if she focused her efforts on the singles. But of course, she's such a fantastic doubles player with Barbora Krejcikova. They've won 3 Grand Slams this year. So yeah, for me, it's gonna, I think, rest on how I think Siniakova fares probably in the singles and the doubles. And to be honest, I'm actually going to give Czech Republic the edge. They've got the biggest fan base here, and I think they're going to provide a great atmosphere that I think I'm going to back the Czech Republic to get through to the final.
So once again, we are divided in our opinions.
I know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how that gets on tomorrow. That is the later semi-final. Of course, we've got the first semi-final coming up, GB versus Australia. I mean, just before we finish this catch-up on day 4, now that we're even closer to this kind of historic day for the GB Billie Jean King Cup team, where do you think that match will be won and lost?
It either will go one of two ways. The team will be so inspired and be able to take that energy through they've had so far, or it might be one of those things where it could go off the boil, having had such a high. And I think it's really hard to keep that momentum going. I think the girls will be able to do it. But I think in terms of how I would play it, I think if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. So I would play the exact same formation as they have done previously. Every single member of that team who played in the last match will have so much belief in their game that they can do that because they played some of the best tennis ever played in the couple of days ago. So I would not change it up. And I think it's harder for a team like Australia to play the underdogs in this sort of situation. So I think Tomljanovic Dart will be interesting. It's a very different matchup. They're both going to really fight for every point. I do think that we probably will get the second singles. And then I'm gonna go with I'm backing the Brits. Ooh. I think we're gonna be in the final.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it could come down. It could come down to that doubles. I think there is a worry that we've almost already peaked, or job's done. We've got to the semi-finals, and that's a great achievement in itself. And I think it's about blocking that out of your mind and actually getting down to business and actually thinking about what could be possible, particularly against, yes, this Australia team is a very, very good team, but there's certainly, I would say there's certainly opportunities there, particularly with the tennis that GB are playing across Heather Watson, Harriet Dart, Barnett and Nichols, and then adding in the crowd factor as well, which I think is going to really give, hopefully, the GB edge. It should be a fascinating tie. So we'll have to see what happens in the semis. Unfortunately, I am actually taking a flight tomorrow. I was so... I'm going to have to hold my hand up here. I was so pessimistic kind of going for GB's chances that I'm actually taking a flight back to London tomorrow morning. But you are number one fan here, dedicated fan. You have changed up your flights and you're going to be sticking and staying around for the action.
Well, actually, Joel, I had more belief. My flight was an evening flight, so I thought the semi-final would go perfectly for us. And
I should have had more belief.
I guess I'm still leaving before the final, yeah.
I'm just tainted by all my Tim Henman growing up years, I feel, of just taking...
the maybe moments.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But yes, we will be back on Monday to do a full catch-up of the semi-finals and the finals. Kim will be getting on board as well. In the meantime, we actually do have a little bit of a bonus Billie Jean King Cup pod. We caught up with the tournament director, Rebecca James, to talk about the event, how to put on an event of this magnitude. We're going to be releasing that on Sunday, so have a look out for that. Really, really interesting. Me and Chris asked quite a few questions. We, of course, asked her as well, how does she take a cup of tea? A question we always ask all of our guests to be put on the brew board. So you should listen to it just for that answer, Chris, because it was an answer that I don't actually think we've had on the show before.
It was wild. Listen to the end because it's controversial.
It is controversial.
We don't end on a good note, put it that way.
It is deeply controversial, yes. But listeners, I hope you enjoyed listening to this day 4 catch up with the Tennis Weekly podcast with myself and Chris. As I said, we are going to be back with our proper catch up, looking back on the semi-finals and finals of the Billie Jean King Cup and the action in the next gen finals, plus looking forward to all the action that's happened so far in Turin as part of the end of season tour finals on the ATP side of things, which kicks off on Sunday. So a lot to discuss then. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from myself. We'll see you again soon.